Da 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 da. Just world adventure out of nowhere.
Welcome to the Sonic episode, y'all. All right.
Have you ever seen a movie based on a video game? It sure sucked, didn't it? Imagine a world in which two actual fans,
I'm Frank.
And I'm Joseph.
yeah, real fans of video games discuss movies based on interactive media and their plethora of flaws, then hear them piece together what they think a good film based on the video game would look like, on this episode of Speculative Realism.
So, hi! Welcome to Speculative Realism. I'm Tyler here with my good buddy Frank.
What's up?
And today we're going to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, a series both loved and hated by thousands upon thousands of people.
A lot.
It's one of those series, if you don't love it, you hate it most of the time. And that's not saying anything against it, that's just saying because that's how it is.
It's just a fact. If you go on the internet, you'll see all sorts of arguments.
But yeah, our goal is for those fans, both diehard and casual, how would we make the best Sonic movie? So the first question is, what do you think we do for the story?
Personally, I'm gonna bring this up a lot, but I think something more along the lines of, Unleashed, but more without the whole werehog thing, because I have nothing against that, but I feel like it had a really good story. Say if it's if we had, I don't know, Unleashed somehow mixed with Adventure 2, just fix some of the plot holes, I think we'd have something going there.
Right, I can agree with that completely. As a big fan of both Unleashed and the Adventure series in general, I felt that was where the story was the strongest. Now, I wouldn't say that the dialogue was the best written, but I definitely felt like, and specifically speaking Adventure here, that the story was solid enough. And it carried out throughout both games, and that it played well, and it didn't ever feel like, it was cliche, and it's gonna be cliche. It's the type of game that it is, but it didn't ever feel like anything was just forced out there because it's we gotta fill up time. It was you actually added this pretty cool part where Sonic's escaping from prison, and it makes a good level.
You have Sonic escaping from prison, and then you got Eggman holding a gun up to Amy's head. It makes sense.
I see no problem here. So yeah, jumping on from that, so you said the story would probably be, let's talk about Unleashed, for example. What kind of aspects do you think you would draw from that directly?
Story-wise, I think, overall, I'd say the story is more like a classic Sonic versus Eggman type thing, but, without too much of a monster of the week type thing. Because, honestly, I don't think Dark Gaia was like that, but essentially, yeah, he's another monster, but it's because of Eggman he was awakened, so.
Yeah, that's a series, I wouldn't say a fault, but that's definitely one of the things in the series that I keep seeing reoccurring. And even when we talked about our Mario series, it was like this, where you have your regular baddie, you have Eggman, and it's either he brings something else into the existence that ends up, taking over his role as the biggest baddie, or he is controlling something else. And I love it, because with Generations, you think, wow, there's this huge big bad guy, and then you find out in the end, oh, it's Eggman, it's been Eggman all along, boom, it's back to how it should be, because he's the main villain. And so I really do like that factor, where if it could just be straight up Sonic versus Eggman, maybe it's a creation of Eggman's, maybe it's something that does kind of get out of his control, but at the same point, he's still the bad guy, and he's probably not going to easily give in to Sonic and be like, no, I'm not helping you, this is how I want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's like Adventure 2, where, he has the potential to die as well. Okay, yeah, team up, whatever. But
my life's at risk? Okay.
It's I guess I'll join you, whatever.
Pretty much.
But I think you brought up the Time Eater. I think he might be the only monster that didn't really backfire on Eggman.
Well, besides losing.
Well, yeah, losing and throwing them into a plane of what?
What?
It's
just all limbo.
Just all white. Am I dead? But other than that, you see Dark Gaia betrays him, Perfect Chaos betrays him, Biolizard wasn't really under his control, betrays him. I never get tired of that. But yeah, and I'd say have to focus solely more on just Sonic versus Eggman as like, you know, central plot point. It's like the classic games. That's all it really was.
I agree with that. Completely. Now, Blue Core Studios, as I talked about in our Mega Man episode, did a Sonic film. They did a Sonic fan film, and it was pretty interestingly received. You had the diehard fans who were like, wow, this is a movie, quote unquote.
Yeah, I was hoping you would bring that up because I did see that, and it was about like a half hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a short film.
It's a short independent film, and for what they had, it was decent, but I wouldn't go on to say it was great. Because, you know, the way I picked it up was Sonic was more of a secondary character when he should be like the focus of the whole thing. You know, I did see they tried to give Eggman some backstory, and it was interesting. And the graphics, I'm not sure about that. That was weird, to say the least.
Yeah, I think and this is just something that's carried throughout the series, if you're gonna go CGI, you should probably go CGI all the way. And first of all, that includes just if you're doing 3D animation, and the inclusion of humans the way they were seen. Now, this is where I make my huge argument on 2006 versus Unleashed. 2006. Holy smokes, what am I playing? Final Fantasy? The people look really good, but that's a problem.
Right.
Because it doesn't fit the environment.
It doesn't look like a Sonic game. It's like, this is one thing. What's Sonic doing here?
Right, exactly. And now I honestly can tell that they were trying an adventure with what little power they had. They were trying to make the people look realistic in that. But since the graphic quality was the way it was, they didn't look hyper realistic, and that was fine.
Right.
You know, they looked like humans, but they didn't look, like, oh, what are you from? Did I just open up my game and put in the wrong disc? And that's what it honestly feels like. Now, jumping back on that, Unleashed, I feel, personally speaking, is a little too cartoony when it comes to the people. That's not an issue given the style of Sonic, I believe.
Oh yeah, no.
But it's just kind of something where you look at it and you're like, oh, like they're pretty cartoony. I guess that can work. And then it makes more sense why Eggman's the shape he is,
Yeah, it looks like he looks like an actual human, except he doesn't have eyebrows. But okay, whatever. But the people in Unleashed were kind of like, I guess in a way they were sort of caricatures based off their respective locations, but you could still tell they were people.
Right.
Like, one wasn't a crippling midget for no reason. Koichi Heroes. But, but, like, if you're gonna go and do, say, live action, like a live action Sonic movie, you could try and fit it in, like, have you ever seen that one Progressive commercial that had Sonic in it?
Yes, I did. I do remember that.
And see, even though I don't really agree with the way they would look through Sonic's eyes, the way it mixed, it looked great. It looked like he could have been actually there.
Right. Now, I thought interestingly, because the way the design of the commercial is in Progressive, just the way their whole set is, I think it fit pretty well because of the way the colors worked. One of the faults, and once again, we're not going to rag on the Blue Core Studio film, we're just saying, how could we have changed it to make it better? Was it was too grungy. It was too dark. And it's the same thing with their Mega Man film. It just felt like they were pushing over this huge blanket over it, when really it was a Sonic game. And we've already seen with Shadow the Hedgehog in 06 is that when you try to go dark and grungy, it doesn't work. I don't think it's supposed to.
You're right. It's like modern movies. I can see why you're trying to make it a little bit edgier and grungier. It's because you see that's happening a lot more now in the film industry. Say with like comic book movies and all that, whatever. But for something based off of a game, especially something like Sonic, you shouldn't go too heavy on it. Have some aspects. Like, I think adventures, like the adventure stories, those had like a good amount of darkness and edge to them, but it wasn't too heavily done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it was in the right places. This sounds weird to say, but it's like, it was serious where it mattered. And then out throughout the whole thing, there was still that comic relief. There were still those characters that existed that made it lighthearted, and it was perfectly fine when it was like that, because it was like, you expected it. You expected, you know, Knuckles' cheesy random things, you know, or, you know, because he thinks, you know, he's pretty cool, and then he says something, and it's like, that's just pretty out there, Knuckles. Why'd you say that?
And also, another thing is, like, I'm pretty sure we're going to get to, like, graphics later on, but something else you should do, don't try and make it, like, too hyper-realistic like they did. Like, I think, in my honest opinion, I feel like Unleashed had the best graphics in a Sonic game. And I'll get more into that when we get there, but it had the best graphics, and if you applied that in, say, the real world, it would look perfect. But with their, like, with, what'd you say it was, Blue Core?
Yeah.
With their, Sonic movie, it looked like they tried. They honestly did try. I can commend them for that. But it looked like they tried a little too hard.
Right. It's kind of the difference between, we have this model and we give him some textures, to let's try and make him like as if he was an actual object in this world. Because I don't know, it's the difference between it's the difference between when you look at Smeagol in Lord of the Rings, who looks like he fits because he's actually supposed to look like a creature of this world. Well, Sonic isn't supposed to look like he's from our world.
Right.
And that's been said throughout the series so many times. So if we're placing him in his own world, then this sounds kind of weird. It almost sounds like we're going on the Who Framed Roger Rabbit route. But if he's in his own world, maybe it's really cartoony. Maybe it's like really, you know, the way it's animated is fully that. But when he enters our own world, you know, he's still got that cartoony style of his, but, you know, nobody else in the real world is noticing that as, like, different.
Yeah.
You know, it's not addressed.
It's kind of like blissfully unaware that, oh, hey, cartoon character in real life. It just seems like a normal occurrence to them. And they shouldn't be, like, too unaware. They question some things. But, you know, that'd be a good route to go.
Right. Now, I feel that route I wouldn't want to take all the way, because, once again, that's the whole breaking the fourth wall route, in my opinion. And that's saying, in that idea, we might be implying that he's from a video game. And I wouldn't want that. Now, once again, I think Wreck-It Ralph did a fantastic job of incorporating Sonic.
They did amazing.
Which was great, because you have this character, and they all know they're video game characters. They all know, and they have this world, and it was really good, because I think, especially with the way Sega's been treating Sonic recently, it just felt like his character, because it was like, okay, yeah, I can break the fourth wall, I can make all these jokes, it's good. But for a movie, I would rather it be, you know, he has his world, quote unquote, and so it's not like he's jumping into the real world, more or less than he's just changing dimensions or something.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, that'd be essentially saying it'd be like a commercial almost. For, what was that one movie? I don't know. There was like a movie based on advertising like Mario 3. I don't remember what movie it was. I'd have to go back and watch some comments.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know why, but Wizard comes to mind. Something Wizard. But yeah, it had the Power Glove in it, and it was this huge, like, just boom, 80s buff film, and you picked up the cassette and it reeked of 80s, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the whole movie is just like one big trailer for the game. But you shouldn't do that if you're gonna make a movie. You should acknowledge that, yeah, it's this character that he's been in a game, but don't like make it overly obvious. If you want to make it a movie, you can make it a movie. I mean, it happens all the time.
Right.
Like, say, what just recently came out? Was that Resident Evil?
I think one of the Resident Evils came out. Now, there was, as far as, like, other fiction, I know Ghost in the Shell came out.
Ghost in the Shell, that's right.
So.
See, like, you're adapting a show, like an anime, into a real movie. You don't acknowledge that it's an anime, even though you might know it, but you can still do that while it looks great.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's one of my big arguments in regards to just anytime you're doing a film based off of another media, try and make it look like its original format, you know, if it was something that the audience was pleased with. You know, if they have complaints with it in different regards, you can, you know, it sounds weird, kind of nostalgically go back and reference that, but make it look better.
I mean, don't be too overly fan servicey, because that's when you lose a lot of fans.
Yes.
But, you know, throw a few things in there, pleases them. you're pretty good to go there.
Right. So overall, I think if story-based, you definitely want to have something, and in my opinion, incorporates our world or incorporates his world as, haha, no, unintended, but incorporate Sonic World maybe as we saw it in Unleashed. Where they're people. It's not just the world of animals. It's not Mobius. It's
Right.
this actual realm of,
Like,
okay, there's people, there's animals, they coexist, and it's not too strange that they look the way they do.
Like, even if it's not, say, real Earth, it could be still Earth, but, like, even if they're not, like, real countries, but you know they're based off of the real countries, like, Atabats, the islands over in sort of the Asia area, Chunnan would have to be China, all that sort of stuff. It can fit like that, but as long as you know it's like the real world, it can work fine.
Right. That's one of the huge things I praise Unleashed for, is because it created the world. And it was obvious, it's like, oh, this isn't the real world. But the environments were so well built and so well referencing that of the real world, it was like, just call it by its name and you'd be fine, like, either way.
Yeah.
I kind of felt that it was good that they didn't, because then they had a world to create, and they could change things up, and they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't have those, sounds weird, they wouldn't have those critics who are like, geographically, this is incorrect. They could go and say, well, it's like this world. But, hey, let's make the structures different, because then it kind of explains why the world's built the way it is so that Sonic can go through it.
Right.
Because you look at the quote-unquote real world in Sonic Adventure 2, and it's like, it's not even Earth itself. It's its own kind of its realm, but it's Earth as we know it, and it's still structured so differently. Sonic Adventure included, it's like you look at Speedway and like, no roads are gonna look like this.
It's City Escape San Francisco zone.
Yeah, which is weird because that looks so realistic as an actual city. It's like, hey, this kind of looks like an actual city. And then you get to the route, 180 whatever from Rouge and Tails levels, and it's like, where are we? Why are we floating above an endless ocean? Like,
AKA the worst levels in the game.
I love how you can see the cars even go up the ramps and just, they like fly over. It's like, is this normal?
Whatever. Screw gridlock traffic. I'm going over it. No,
If you can't go through it, go over it.
I hate those levels, but that's like one of my favorite things about it.
Oh man, but the construction took a lot longer than I-20. Bah! Okay, so jumping back on that. But yeah, I like the concept. If we're not gonna have quote unquote the real world as in Earth, you gotta have something close to it, because I feel that's kind of the main point of Sonic getting into these environments, these lush environments, because he has all the ones built up from the first games, that are in whatever his realm is, the Green Hill Zone, the Marble Zone, etc., etc. But it's like, how far could you go with that? How far could you go with just the most basic story of Sonic versus Eggman in this kind of cartoony world?
Right, and see, like, you should also make sure that it is like Earth. It shouldn't be like, a carbon copy off in space. It's like, oh, it's like Earth, but it is a completely different planet. You should acknowledge that it really is the planet. Because they do mention that it is Earth and Unleashed and, Adventure 2 and whatever different games. But,
right.
Based on just the central story of Sonic vs. Eggman, Eggman is, at the end of the day, he is human, so, he has to come from somewhere, and he has to do something to, make what he wants.
Right. My mind jumps back to the shows, and we go back to the original, series, where not much is explained, and it doesn't have to be, because it's your general Saturday morning cartoon.
Which one, Adventures?
Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah. Where it's like, not much is explained, and it doesn't have to be. Because it's a funny little show, and it's just, boom, you have these characters in this world, and if you didn't know them from the video game, there's two things you need to know. He's a blue hedgehog who's fast, and you have a yellow tail who's kind of a whiz kid and kind of a little bit scared, your little brother figure.
You got blue speed and yellow nerd.
And boom, and you have world. Yeah, and it's like, it doesn't need to be explained. But I feel like at this point, the Sonic world's been so far stretched out.
Right.
It's a good thing. It's been so far fleshed out, sometimes too much.
Yeah,
Once again, 06.
You have that diversity, but going back to the whole darkness and edginess, you make it lighthearted too. Don't
Oh, yeah.
overly saturate that, darkness like say Sad AM did.
Yeah.
Because I tried watching it like a while ago, and I can appreciate it as a show, like it happened, but it didn't keep me for long because I didn't understand it. I knew that there's this character Sonic. He's Blue Hedgehog. He's fast. He's funny. He's cool. What is this?
Yeah.
It didn't seem like the same character to me, so I got lost with it.
But yeah, I don't know what Booms. I don't know if Booms changed anything because I've heard, of course, the show's significantly better than the games.
Right.
But I don't know if they've changed anything, as in what the world is. You know?
They might have, because if you look at like the cartoon and the in-world, environment,
Right.
you see a lot more characters styled like them, like the
Right, they're animal
characters.
characters,
You don't see a whole lot of humans.
I think the same similar story kind of with Lost World, which is the weird thing is, okay, so you have your animals, and this is almost my Crash Bandicoot argument. It's like you have the animals that are animals, quote unquote, the little baby-looking animals, little chibi ones, and it's like, are those the actual quote unquote animals? And then what is Sonic?
Right, like you're talking about the ones that you'd find and put in like the Chow Garden.
Right, the ones that you'd
Yeah.
either find or the ones that you'd rescue, variants of that. Just going throughout, like, for example, in Sonic Adventure 2, Chow Garden ones, in Lost Worlds, the ones you get from the capsules,
Yeah. I mean, it's been like that for a while, but I think I'd kind of have to go with, say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles rules.
I would be okay with that.
Kind of like, not necessarily mutated and not really an alien, but just kind of he exists. He's an animal. He's a humanoid anthro animal,
Right.
but you have your like real animals too.
Yeah, I like that route only because I think, for one, it'd be funny, he gets to a real world and there's an actual hedgehog, not very fast.
That did happen in the comics once.
Really?
Yeah, he's like, that's a hedgehog? Where's his little gloves and shoes? I've seen that picture. Hold on.
Boom. That's like the perfect breaking of the fourth wall kind of thing. And that's, once again, it's back to the argument of Blair's going too far on, making jokes like that. And I think that's the perfect line, is that's a reference. It can be quickly done, easily executed, and boom, it's funny, and then it's gone. And you don't linger on it like you're not trying to make lore as to why those animals look the way they do. You're just making a joke about it, and because it's Sonic, you can jump right onto the next joke.
Right. and it's not forced either, like, don't choke on your aspirations.
Oh.
How's that line?
Was forced a pun? Was forced a pun? Did you say it wasn't forced and then talked about, oh my goodness.
That line was so stupid.
He was still Anakin.
He definitely. I mean, at that part, he was still Anakin.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go see Rogue One. Good movie. I can't say I liked episode 7 too much, cough cough, but
I
Rogue
liked it.
One, oh my goodness.
Episode 7 was amazing for me, so, I recommend that.
Tune in next time. No, I'm joking. So, but yeah, jumping back, because that was an interesting bunny trail.
Oh yeah, here's the picture I was talking about.
We're gonna put a link to this one in the description below. Oh my goodness, that's great. But yeah, same boat is. That makes me think back to Sonic X, because the picture is something from the basis of Sonic X, and it's like, how far is too far? And I think Sonic X really did it really well. And the reason I say that is because Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Adventure in general, didn't have to explain too much on story because it was generic enough to where you understood the environment, you knew what was happening, and you just went with it. You just ran with it, quite literally. And Sonic X took that and then, tried to explain it. And yes, it has its parts where it's like, you could have left that, without any comments. But
Chris Thorndike. Get rid of him. It's funny because a few days ago, I just went and watched it was like the Sonic Adventure 2 part of Sonic X where they go against the Bio-Lizard, Final Hazard, all that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the game had more impact than the show because, humans.
yeah.
Don't focus too much on humans. Like, I feel like the Transformers series does that too, which I love the Transformers series a lot. I know, people criticize Michael Bay for a lot of things. One thing that I would say, don't focus so much on humans,
Mm-hmm.
because essentially it is robots fighting. I come to see that, it's awesome. But like, you try and put humans in there where they don't belong, like at the end where Sonic gives Rouge Shadow's ring. That was powerful because they worked together. Chris had no point in that. Like, I'm sure they tried to like shoehorn a reason for him to be relevant. He wasn't.
No.
It was not great.
And not in that environment. Now, I kind of think, as a person who does a little bit of writing and reads a lot of stories based around that, I could see why they would include Chris as a character just in general, but they pushed him where he didn't need to be. And more often than not, it really did feel forced, where it was like, why would we have this kind of character? You know, it's almost like, once again, the way you worded it when you were talking about the Blue Core Studios, like, why are you putting this character in? Because he's like kind of rivaling with Sonic as the main character.
Right.
And you don't need that. Sonic needs to be kind of the full main character. And sure, if you want to have like a human other, good guy character that comes in every once in a while, but not so much that he's like trying to be the person that's being saved all the time, that's being the main focus. Because then it's not Sonic X anymore, it's Chris X.
Like,
we don't want that show.
Like, if you have a movie called Sonic the Hedgehog, have it be about Sonic the Hedgehog, not Mike the Human.
Right. And it's so weird because even like, and it's weird because I love Christopher Nolan's Batman series, but it was interesting, not Batman Begins, but
The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight. It kind of felt half of the time like, are they focusing on another person and the Batman's this mysterious figure? But it fit his character though. Right. Because you're not really supposed to know that much about Batman. And if you didn't, obviously if you didn't watch through the first film, you're not going to anyway. But it's like, you look at it and I kind of saw that. But that's not how Sonic needs to be. Because Sonic's that character you really need to focus on. There's nothing mysterious about him. He doesn't need to be this superhero.
He doesn't have this alter ego. He's Sonic, you know that.
I'd rather be hilariously edgy, I don't know the exact quote from Boom, but it's just kind of funny because it's like, literally, he's not here to be the hero as much as he is just do what he wants to. And if it happens to be the right thing, fantastic. He doesn't have a bad heart or anything. It's just a matter of, he's that cocky, self-centered kind of character, and that works.
Right. And that's essentially like, if he's not Sonic, then you have some weird fanfiction over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, just have it be about, your title character, and don't change a whole lot. If you have an established character, say from a video game or from a comic like Batman, have it be like them. And like, if you have just source material like a video game, base it off of that and what made that game good. Even if it's like a really bad game like Sonic 06, take some of the good aspects from it.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. 1-to-1, no matter what. The soundtrack to this film would be fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because no matter what Sonic game has come out, the music's always been fantastic. I personally have those 6 soundtrack downloaded onto my system because of the music itself. Not because of the game, because the music itself is actually really well done. Right. And that's the same way with Adventure 2, Adventure 1, and even the older games, just because it was like, I don't know, it was like they had some entirely separate game budget just for music.
And it's funny you bring up 06 soundtrack because I was playing Sonic Adventure 2 and I was getting so like mad at the different levels because I couldn't get past it. But as soon as I put on like a Sonic 06 song that kind of reflected the same background, it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Like, where was I? I think I was in like Green Forest or White Jungle. Those 2 levels.
Oh, those ones that are like, you don't get an A rank on? You just run and then you pray?
Yeah. But, like, I was doing the timed ones, the Mission 4s, and I couldn't get an A rank. But as soon as I put on Kingdom Valley from 06, it helped me so much.
Right.
It was amazing.
And that's not saying that, the music in Green Forest and White Jungle is bad or anything. It's just saying,
No.
even the music from that game, from 06, the mother of all horrors that has come to the Sonic series,
that almost killed it.
Yeah. Oh, literally. Even the music in that is good, and it fits, and that's another thing that I find really good is in every game you're going to have, and it's kind of become a cliche at this point, but it's what you would have to do in a film now that it's become tradition is have those different environments. You have your forest environment, you have your plains environment, you have your city environment at this point, and because all those are expected, and it's like, if you don't, I honestly feel like you'd be trying to put Sonic in a different setting where he wouldn't fit.
Right, and that's another thing for the movie. Don't focus on like one specific location. That would get boring pretty fast.
That also wouldn't be Sonic.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotta be on the go, gotta go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm over here. Oh, now I'm over here.
Oh, even Sonic X, it's so funny because in Sonic X, he's always like, anytime it cuts away from him and he's not at the house where everybody's at, he's like in the desert. He's like on the mountaintops. He's like somewhere ridiculous. And I always found that funny because it's like, no, that's him though. He would just go somewhere, not only to get a change of scenery, but just to run.
Now, if it's a battle, that's a different story.
Of course.
Say I keep going back to Unleashed because I love this game. But say at the very beginning, you see Sonic and Eggman in space.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there for quite a good time. So while you keep that for a battle, it's almost like Star Wars rules. Say with the Battle of Hoth, that's a major fight, so you stay there.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the story progresses, you can move on to somewhere else.
Right, you don't have to stick into that environment. And I feel like the best way I could put it is, you kind of, at this point, it would almost be like it wouldn't be a Sonic film if you didn't have a space battle.
Oh, yeah.
But in that side point, I think space is such a great environment for that because it kind of gives this weakness onto Sonic, where it's like, he can't really run out of space.
Right.
And I find that kind of funny because rules don't apply. We obviously know that. It's a Sonic series. But in regards to the way it's like, you can't really run out of space. You have this ship or whatever this landmark is, especially within Sonic Adventure 2,
The Ark.
The Ark. What was the name of the stage where the Sonic and Shadow battled on?
Oh,
For True Story? Or is that the music?
that's the music.
I get the music and the stage mixed up so often.
Yeah, no, I think that was just kind of generic location, but it was on the Ark.
Right. And the reason why I bring that up is because, once again, if you could do something like that, and obviously it's a game, and we're not ever saying that you're going to be able to incorporate everything you see in a game into the movies, because that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I honestly agree that game is like the top form of media, because it's interactive. And
Yeah.
it's interactive to the point where you have either total control or so much control that the film's basically yours. Last of Us, Uncharted series. They're like interactive movies, and they're great. That's one of the series you'll never hear us talk about on this show, because they're really well developed.
It's kind of like a make-your-own story adventure.
Right.
Like, you have these elements that are already here, but you can manipulate them the way you want. And honestly, games can do that too, because you have a set story, okay, but the way you play it, and if it branches out more, then you can make the story as long as you want it to.
Right. It determines your experience with it, but it also determines, I think, how fleshed out the story can be. But jumping back to what I was saying, I'm not saying we would incorporate something like this into the film because it's just so video game-like.
Yeah.
But just the way that battle was, where they were in space, but they were running. It was the aspect of, boom, you have your characters, they're both set, and you both know their strengths and weaknesses, and then all of a sudden they're in this environment where they're just going at it. And I love the way Generations did that, is because it created this giant track course that they could go around.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, this is great, because not only is that kind of limitation that we were talking about with space, it's kind of dealt with, because you give Sonic this environment that he can just keep running and keep running, but at the same time, he can't escape it.
Yeah.
And so if he ever got weak or his opponent got weak, they couldn't get out.
Yeah, it's not just like a complete linear track like, Adventure 2 was.
Right.
It has some things changed, but I would also say give us other perspectives. Like, say, in Adventure 2, there are two major stories. You have the good, the bad story. But each story parallels each other. So when you get to the Sonic vs. Shadow fight, you also have the Shadow vs. Sonic
fight. Oh, yeah.
And as long as you find a way to incorporate that, I think that would be pretty cool. And say if you have parts in the movie where you go and reference some different stages, like Knuckles' Wild Canyon and Rouge's Dry Lagoon, have it kind of cut between both of them, because they're in a similar and really very close location.
Right.
and it's almost at the same time. So just kind of like flip between both of them as in like real time.
Now, depending as I see it, that wouldn't be necessary. It'd be really cool, because definitely if you have those parallel, those, as I should say, counterpart characters to each other, and they're going to be doing that, I think that'd be really cool. It's not a necessity, but depending on how comical the film could be, I could even see it where if certain environments are very similar or even the same,
Right.
like obviously Wild Canyon is not Dry Lagoon,
Yeah.
and they're not close to each other either. But they're there at the same time, and when we're talking about game-wise, they're kind of similar difficulty, and you're set in these environments at your starting level, go. But however, Pumpkin Hill and Rail Highway,
Skyrail.
Sorry, what did I say? Rail Highway, Skyrail. They're the same environment.
Raildical Highway.
Raildical Highway. East Jock. No. And so you have these two environments. They're the same. They're the exact same. Different parts of the same area, but they're the exact same geographic location. And I think something like that would be really interesting, because if you have comedy, you could say they're in the exact same point, the exact same time, but they're so focused on their own goals, they don't even see each other. Or you have the points where they do meet up, like with Green Forest and White Jungle. Exact same environment, exact same time, they meet up, battle, and then they're like, we gotta get out of here. So they have their own paths. It's not like one's following the others directly. It's a different story from each side.
Yeah. And like, don't it'd be like a quick reference too. Like, you won't linger on it too long to the point where, one stage becomes the movie. You gotta just, you make the joke, it's about 2 or 3 minutes long, and then just move on to the rest of the 180 or whatever, how long it is.
I feel that exact same feel that exact same way. So in review, though, so for story, we want to do something similar to Unleashed, similar to SA2, where world, Sonic adventure, kind of environment, and, whether it's not the real world, quote unquote, it's still a world that they can use and that works as Earth.
And it's relatable. Like,
oh yeah,
it's something and it's established that, this location, it.
And so to touch on graphics and just kind of style of the film, what would you go with personally?
Yeah, I would, like I said, Unleashed style, because if you look, say, the opening cutscene, and throughout all the cutscenes, it doesn't shine too much on the others, but that first one, you see a great amount of detail, and it looks semi-realistic to the point where it looks believable. Like, when Sonic is super, you can see the reflections and everything from just his shoes. And then when he becomes the werehog, you can see like every single hair like moving. But it doesn't have to look too real, like real fur and wind blowing on that.
Right.
But if it looks that good, I say go with it.
I agree with that. And once again, this is jumping kind of in and out of how are we going to bring people into it. I wouldn't personally go live action. And the sole reason for that is because then we can, one, because Eggman's human, we don't have to change him. If it's a live action, we have to change him. In my opinion, and I think this is kind of where Blue Core was like, meh on it, is the fact that Eggman is one of those characters that kind of has to be voiced, not acted.
Right.
And the reason why I say it is just because he has that shape. He has that aspect about him where, like, you try and change it like 06 did, and it's like, like, don't look at it. Oh.
And I was gonna say that it's like it makes voice acting a lot easier, because that's all these characters really have been. It's just voiced. Like, if you were going a live action route, I would say try as hard as you can to get Mike Pollock to look like Eggman. If he did that for like a public announcement, that'd be kind of funny.
Oh my goodness.
Actually,
yeah, I could actually see that. And that's the huge thing, like you're saying, because they are the voices of the characters. That's what makes the characters. I still have a hard time getting used to the new Sonic voice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's okay. I understand it's Sonic, and it's the way it is. And it's just the voice carries it,
I mean, the only voice actor left from the 4Kids era would have to be Mike Pollock.
Yeah.
Because he's too good to lose. He is Eggman now.
Yes.
And I did have this idea a while ago. I think it'd be pretty cool to see, I don't know, for, say, 30th anniversary, if Mike Pollock sang EGGMAN. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would. Oh,
Like even
kind
if
of funny.
like if he did it like by himself, or if they threw it in like say the Sonic Boom TV show as like a little, nod.
Singing it to himself, like some karaoke thing.
Yeah.
I could see that, because the way Eggman's designed in Boom, which is hilarious, I could see him like having an awkward moment. He's just playing guitar or something, like doing something that you kind of wouldn't expect Eggman to, but at the same time, yeah, he's gonna do anyway because he's that comical.
And there's another thing too that happened in the comics. You do see Eggman singing his own theme to himself.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'll try and find that too. But when I saw that, I'm like, Sonic was already self-aware before Boom.
Yes. Oh, and that's, of course, I think that would be something I'd most definitely carry over into the films. Once again, not to the point where it's like it just feels like a meme, but definitely to the point where it's like, oh, they're aware that, that they have these jokes. Because I think if you don't reference those, you're getting to the point where you're trying to make Sonic serious. And that's not what it is. That's why I actually really am okay with, as much as I like the older films, I'm really okay with Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles, because he didn't try to make it grungy. He made it funny. Because that's what Ninja Turtles are. They're hilarious, and you're not trying to make them edgy, or you're not trying to like give them these huge emotional attachments. And even if you do, there's enough comic relief thrown throughout the whole thing where it's like, it's perfectly fine.
Right. And I mean, like, people can criticize the movie for that all they want, but, as long as it works, I think you're fine. And I'd say if it wasn't, that's why you shouldn't go too heavy on the fan service or whatever, because that can lose a lot of people, especially newcomers. If they don't know the source material, they'll be just so lost. And that's why I like Transformers, because it applied to, like, it was relatable to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You got a general story about a kid in his car, and then, oh, giant fighting robots, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I love the series now, because I grew up with that.
Mm-hmm. Same thing I was talking about with Mario, and we're gonna put this image into the description as well. But yeah, Eggman is strolling along and singing his theme to himself.
It's the best thing ever.
As he would. I wouldn't expect anything less from him. If he knew he had a theme song, he'd be singing it often. Yeah. But as I was saying, same with the Mario, kind of series. Sonic's pretty well known.
Yeah.
He was like the first video game character to have a float in like the Macy's Day Parade, if I remember right. It was either that or Pikachu.
Yeah, no, I think it had to be Sonic. I remember reading that somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it was Sonic. Pikachu might have been like close after that, but
yeah, Pikachu's become a staple now.
Yeah,
like you always see a float of him. But in that same environment, there are very few people who don't know who Sonic is. Love him or hate him, you know who he is. And so it's going to be like, we wouldn't have to fill in that much on the story. I love the way Unleashed did it is, Indiana Jones style. You start at the end of your last adventure, and you come in, and Sonic's in space. He's fighting Eggman. Boom. You already established your characters. You've already established your situation, your characters. You can show off their powers and weaknesses in that environment, and your story has started. And
it's great when like a story flows, like Unleashed and say the ending of Unleashed to Colors. That makes sense because right after Eggman's made Eggman Land, that's fallen. Eggman is still trying to make his own like theme park.
Yeah.
So he just goes straight to space. Like right after it flows. The voice acting doesn't, because they changed the voice actors. But the story just keeps going, and I mean that's why, because I think that's why I keep going back to Unleashed, is because it was my first Sonic game ever. I was amazed because I knew nothing about the character. I didn't know like who is this, and there are more characters than just this, but it put me in a position to where I can understand it, and I know who this character is. Okay, this is Sonic, he goes fast, he's blue, Hedgehog, cool, got it. And then as soon as I started like really getting into the series, it was easy for me to know more about it, because just from that I had already learned a lot about the series.
Right. Like a good film, I feel Unleashed did that with the story, where it was like, you have your characters and you well establish them in the beginning of the story, and then of course everything else is just bonus. You either know references or you don't get them, and it doesn't hurt you if you don't get the references, because it doesn't become a big part of that story. Once again, when we throw in jokes or throw in for lack of a better term, memes, into the sense of into a film like that, it's not going to harm your understanding of the film if you don't get this joke.
Right.
It's just going to go over your head and the story's going to continue.
But as soon as like you go and look it up, you go, oh, and then it's funnier.
Right.
And you get
And of course, if you already get it, then we're already reaching that audience. That's our aimed target. But
Yeah.
we're not making it so much so that it's like, yeah, you don't get this joke, get out of theater. So, overall, and not to wear overalls, because that's Mario's job,
and no clothes at all except gloves or shoes.
except gloves or shoes, I am concerned.
And now a scarf.
Ah, yeah. Oh, boy. Why'd you switch out your gloves for bandages? What was the big argument? His arms are blue.
Yeah.
Why are his arms blue?
Blue arm Sonic. That's a meme in itself.
So, boy, oh boy. Overall, I think this film would, I wouldn't say it would be a joke, but I think it would be filled with enough jokes to where it would be, even if it was bad, it would be to the point where it knows it's not going to be good. And I feel like that's okay for Sonic. Like, obviously, you'd want to make an effort to do it good, but if you had to, I think you could do what Boom is doing now. And it realizes the faults of its game. And so in the show, it's either making fun of that or just going back to what made Sonic good.
And just to bring this up real quick, like if you want to get the writers, I'd say get people that know the series well enough. Like, actually get some people from Sega if you can. That know the character, that have worked with him for several years. Even get some of the voice actors from the past years if you can get, like, Jason Griffith. Because
that would be the major selling point for me. Is the writing is number one for me, but number two, and not far off, is voices.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get either voices that I don't know, I wouldn't want imitations. That sounds really weird to say, but I wouldn't want imitations in the sense of, somebody who's trying to sound like Jason Griffith or the guy before him.
That's essentially what, that's what each voice actor eventually does.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't know who does Knuckles now, but it always sounds like he's trying to do a Dan Green impression. And then the dude who's doing Shadow now, ew.
Yeah, I find it funny because I think they literally have just given up with Shadow. They're like, okay, he's gonna be cliche.
He's this Al the Hedgehog. But get people with that past experience that were the characters. Like even if you can get, say, Ryan Drummond from back in the Adventure series, if you can like interview him and get some notes from that for a story and like what the characters like and all that. Do that, because I've seen this happen in a lot of different movies where they're prepping for it. Like, say for for Star Wars 7, the person who plays Chewie, Peter Mayhew, he had problems during filming, so he also had some other really tall dude to help him do the character.
Mm-hmm.
But Mayhew had to like show him the ropes. It's like, this is Chewie's mannerisms and just like the small movements, it makes the character.
Right.
So if you can gather all sorts of like info from past voices and experience and kind of build on that, I think that would like kind of solidify the characters and make them easier to portray.
I agree completely. And I actually see that pretty often where it's like, if you don't either get something from the source, either be it a writer, just basic information or even references. If you're not getting it from the source or somebody who knows it well enough, it's not going to turn out good. And that's what I feel like happened. It's kind of funny. I feel like happened with 06 because they divided the team up. The ones to work on 06 and then the one to work on those Wii games. And I feel like the ones that went to the Wii games were those people who were the funny, we've been with Sonic since the Adventure series, and their Sonic team's going to work on this. And it's like,
yeah, but you did it a little bit too hard.
Yeah, it's like you need the group together, and then when you divide them up, it's like you get the wrong sides, and nobody talked to each other.
Yeah,
nobody went back and said, okay, let me go talk with that team and see if this can be any better. They were like, no, Edge, and the other side's like, no. Jokes!
Divided you do not stand or conquer.
You don't run. You trip, you fall. You roll off hill. So.
But yeah, no, I think that would probably work the best, and I think that's also where a lot of video game movies fall flat.
Oh,
They
yeah.
see, they're kind of like the onlookers. They see it through the window, and I hate to bring up the abomination of the original Mario movie.
Mm-hmm.
But
We talked about that in our last episode. Go watch that if you have. Listen to that if you haven't.
That's why you don't stretch a story so far, because Mario essentially is a story about fat Italian plumber who goes to Mushroom Kingdom, jumps on turtles, saves a
Right.
princess.
Oh
Not
yeah,
that
it's
hard.
so basic, and the movie stretched that, and then it tried to throw in its own understanding of it. And it's like
Suddenly-
you don't need an explanation.
Suddenly dinosaurs, because why not?
Yeah.
But for Sonic, don't stretch that either, because at the end of the day, you have a blue hedgehog who goes fast, and he kicks Eggman's butt. It's not that hard.
Right.
But
I don't see how you could mess it up, but people keep doing it.
yeah, and I mean nowadays Mario does have the level of story. He has more story than anything.
Prior.
Yeah, anything before. But Sonic, he does focus a lot on story as well, because you can just go from stage to stage and see it for the colors and the aspects. It's like, oh, that looks cool, but it can be like very story based too. And I think Sonic over the years has like gained enough, I'd say, story experience where it can go 0 to 100 real fast. And that's not even referencing Sonic.
That's not speed joke. Yeah. And I don't think it started out like that. Obviously, once again I look back at Adventure and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
floats. It
Adventure
floats.
is like relatively short,
Yeah.
but when you have different aspects of it, then
Right.
it can get like kind of fleshed out.
So to review, simple story, animated style, probably more like Unleashed.
Yeah.
Big influence from Sega. You actually either need to talk with the people or get something from the actual writers or actors or whatever, because if you don't, it's gonna suck.
Yeah. And don't make it a bad movie. Just
Yeah, production value. That's I think Blue Core Studio, they went with what they had, and you can't criticize them for that because
Yeah,
they
no.
did good with what they had. But what you can say is, if you're gonna try and make a movie, make sure you have the right stuff.
yeah, make sure you have at least the funding and the people behind it, and just have people that know what they want and like what the major audience wants too. And
That's why we're here.
I mean, especially like even if I don't make it, I would have to say try and get the animators. And I did read somewhere that this may happen, but the Sony Sonic movie that they're trying to do,
Yeah, that's like falling off the map now, though.
it has. But I did read somewhere that I'm pretty sure they said they were gonna try and get the people that did the animations for Unleashed.
Oh,
And
that would be good.
That'd be amazing. And I think more power to them for that, because that's, again,
It wasn't
in my
just the
opinion,
quality of like the models and stuff, like the actual animation, like
Right.
it was immersive.
It was immersive. And
Unlike
it flowed.
06's moving your arms and mouth for forever, and it's like just
Yeah,
one
no.
movement. Like what?
Yeah, no. I mean, especially with the cutscenes, they flow. Like, you don't see polygons like you would have back then. I mean, it doesn't have to look too hyper-realistic like 06, where it's something that it's not. But I'd have to say, if I could make a suggestion to anybody that wants to make the Sonic movie, try and get the people that did Unleashed and/or people that know how to kind of replicate that,
Yes.
because I think that'd be like the best production value for a Sonic looking movie.
Right. And that jumps back, I think that jumps straight into the way they did Wreck-It Ralph. Is Sonic had all his mannerisms. He had all his little quirks, if you will, in the way he moved, in the way he acted, the way he spoke, and that was obviously on the job of the voice actor.
Right.
But it's just those little touches that turn it from being, it's a good movie to being a good Sonic movie. Because if you, I hate to put it, I don't dislike The Force Awakens at all. I feel the story is lacking. I honestly do, because it's it's really reminiscent of Episode 4. But as I see it, it's a good movie either way. Like, bam, I watch it and I'm like, the production value of this thing is through the roof and it looks great.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, I would have a hard time saying it's my favorite Star Wars movie. Like, I would have to be like really, really talked into that.
Yeah,
but
no. It definitely, that's the same thing for me. Like, I can see the parallels for New Hope, but I don't pay too much attention to it. To me, it's a new Star Wars movie.
Right.
It looks great. I enjoyed it. I cried. I laughed. But
and that's just it. It's a good movie.
It's a really good movie at that.
Right.
But,
And so if you can do that, at least do that.
but,
you know.
like, it doesn't like force anything to be my new favorite, because in all honesty, I'd have to say Empire's still my favorite. It's the best one by far for me.
I'm a prequels lover. People are gonna hate me. I'm a prequels lover, and I look back on it and I like think, oh, there's so much they could have done better. But at the same time, these aren't the worst films ever made. And that's what's funny though, is because you look at Episode 1. I'm gonna not talk about Episode 2, but you look at Episode 1 and Episode 3, and for their time, it's like, whoa.
Oh yeah, for the
Like
time.
they shot out there in production value for their time. And so that's exactly what I'm looking at this in the aspect of, is saying, you know, you either have the line where you have a good film where it's production, or you have a good source material film, which would be a good Sonic film in this case. Because if you can get both, do it. Do it every chance you get. But if you can't do one, don't try and sacrifice one for the other. That sounds really weird. But if you're like, oh, well, we just got to try and make it more Sonic-y, so then you lower the quality of it, it's going to look like crap. And then nobody's going to want to watch it, even if it's really good writing and really good acting, because it doesn't look good.
Right, and I mean, sacrifices probably will be made, like
Of course.
like with any movie. And, you know, we may do a future episode on Star Wars movies, but
Oh, that'd be fun.
But I think, you know, you see the technology and capabilities we have nowadays, where, you know, Transformers looked so real back in 2007, like this can actually happen. And then you look at things nowadays where, say, Rogue One, the CGI characters who had already passed, they looked real.
Right. Oh, I didn't think twice after when I saw Tarkin the second time, and then I saw Leia. Boom, there were people.
Yeah.
Like, Tarkin, I kind of got hints about that, but
Yeah.
it literally took me a bit to realize that he was not there.
I sat there, honestly, I sat there a few minutes kind of squinting at the screen. I'm like, I don't see that many flaws. But then when you go and look at, say, like, the special editions, whenever they add stuff or subtract things,
Ugh.
they still have that, like, Phantom Menace quality about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not that good. Like, if you say the rank, or not the Rancor, the Sarlacc scene, that still looks like that 1999 CGI. Fix it. Go back over it. Re-render it.
Right.
I mean, it's not the best change ever to have it have a beak. It's better to have it just as a pit, but make it look real. But, you know, that's a story for another time.
Yeah. So yeah, well, we may jump into Star Wars another time. Once again, we usually focus on video game and the concepts with there, but who knows, if you want to hear us talk about other films, we'll definitely do a review series coming up in a bit. More info on that in the future. But in closing, I think overall, focus on the production value, like really good for this. Make sure you get the right team on it, you know, for the source material, and don't try and sacrifice
Don't make
good
it
writing to make it look good.
Yeah, don't make it something it's not. Do your homework when you make this. Like, it has to appeal, and not just change everything.
Right. I have nothing against reboots, but for this, it wouldn't need to be a reboot. It would need to, in my opinion, be some kind of a continuation, like Unleashed was, like Adventure was. The world's already established. You're continuing on from it.
Yeah,
You're
don't
not rewriting Sonic 06.
Yeah,
you know?
don't make Sonic 06 and don't make Boom, because Boom essentially was like that was kind of a reboot in itself, wasn't it? Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
No. All right, well, thank you for joining me, Frank. This has been a wonderful discussion.
It was fun.
All right, we will join you next time. So sit back and just wait patiently until we upload more, right?